Hello, I am very sick and recording this very early, but I have a TADC theory that I would like to say before too many episodes come out. So anyone who's watched this channel knows that my favorite character is Jax, and I believe that Gooseworks may hold secrets in Jax in his character design that was not intended. Okay, so for reference, this video is specifically the video that I will be referencing for the eye shape of Jax. This video is kind of what inspired this theory, although I had been, concocting it. I will also link this video in the description for anyone who may want to check it out as well. So according to this video, masked emotions are signified by dilated pupils. For example, when he joked about Cosmo's funeral in episode 6, when he butters Kane up in episode 7, many sections when he shuts down from Pomni in episode 5 and 6, among many others. Hiding something emotions are when his eyes aren't dilated, but they aren't quite small enough to be the pinprick eyes that signal unmasked emotions. This may include some moments with Kane, among others, although we find a lot of this one in episode 7. Finally, unmasked expressions are expressions marked by small pinprick pupils. These scenes are scenes with genuine emotion, typically anger or fear. These moments include during Kaufmo's funeral in episode 2, when he was being reevaluated in episode 4, and as an example that is not anger or fear, when he was laughing at Pomni in the manor in episode 3. So we can all agree that this pupil theory seems to be accurate, not only because it makes logical sense, but also because in Jax's character and persona it makes perfect sense in context. So in addition to this, it also makes a lot of sense because in the earlier episodes, I'm talking episodes 1 through 2, we see his masked face a lot more than his other expressions. So why does this matter? Well, I think that Jax may be a CNA employee himself, or at least is hiding one. I have more to this theory, I promise, and there is actual evidence that may suggest this. If you pay overly close attention, like me, because I have no life, you will notice that when Jax is talking to Abel about how none of them are CNA employees, his pupil shape is in the hiding something shape. I think we can all agree this means he's hiding something. Yes? Cool? Okay, now you may be thinking, Shadow, this could be any one of them. And that is exactly why I decided to rule out every single circus member one by one. I am so unemployed. The NPCs! Now, the NPCs that we have met, at least in my opinion, are very unlikely candidates. Disappearing Guy has a specific function that he has never failed to carry out, and the Shrimp NPC is simply an unfinished AI, or at least that's what we have to assume. At first, Ming and Abel may seem like the perfect candidates for this job. However, I still do not find either of them to be actual CNA employees. Ming doesn't really say enough to prove that he is or is not a CNA employee, although this could be debated and could be a possible good plot twist. As for Abel, if you watched my reaction video, how dare you, I talked about how he seemed very vague in little details about his story, and because of this, he acts too much like an AI for me to think he's not an AI. I moved to another spot, so I'm sorry if you can hear snoring, but it is very early in the morning, so... Time for the main cast. I will be going in age order as I am too lazy to think of a different order, so we are starting with Kinger. At first, you may think that Kinger is a good option, as he also had the butterfly incident in episode 6. However, similar things can be said about other members, just not in as obvious a way as it is for Kinger. For example, Zooble has infinite body parts they can swap out, and Gangle has a comedy mask that dictates her emotions constantly. It is embarrassing how many tries it took me to record that. This is branching off a bit from the theory, but it seems to me that you can actually make up whatever you want about the circus, and that only about half of the cast is actually aware of this, since Jax, Ragatha, and Pomni seem to have no special qualities when it comes to their avatar and their ability. Next up is Ragatha, and I'm gonna be totally honest, I really just can't see her being a CNA employee and not telling everyone how to get out. Like, sure, she could secretly be an evil mastermind who's really the twist villain, but if that were the case, she would have felt much more nuanced about evil Ragatha in the 5th episode, and in reality, they really did not get along well at all. Next up is Gangle. Gangle is one of the first ones I will actually consider for this theory. Think about it. It would make sense if she somehow slipped around Jack, since he's said before that we've been a team in all of the team adventures in the past, and they probably used to spend a lot of time together. If this did happen and Gangle accidentally slipped in character in front of Jax and had to explain her identity, it makes sense why Jax teases her so much and hides behind jokes around her in particular. Not only that, but this could be an explanation for him almost abstracting so many times, as he is still trying to keep a secret from the others, and that might be what's really tearing him up inside. Personally, I don't think Gangle would hide this from the others either, but I could see the show going in this direction. Next is Pomni. I honestly just severely doubt she would hide this from everyone else in the circus, much like I thought of Ragatha. And since she is meant to be the main character of the series, I believe that if she were secretly a CNA employee, we would get more evidence for this, since we learned so much about her character throughout the season. However, I will admit this would make a great and quite unexpected plot twist. Zooble. Do I need to say anything about them, honestly? If you're hesitant and are just like, oh, well, maybe Zooble is just hiding that she is an employee, just think of how much more afraid of Zooble that Jax would be if he were teasing them. Would still make a great plot twist, though. Now, I have 2 different characters that I think are the most likely to be CNA employees. The first option being Jax himself. At first, it seems as if he may not be an option, as he mentions emotions around him, but think about it a bit longer. He teases people in the circus all the time, as if he will have no consequences. He seems to want to learn about Pomni, who is, although this prodding could be genuine interest, the newest member in the circus. He even has keys to several areas of the circus, to the extent that he has an entire bucket of keys that he has no idea where they go to. This would also explain why he is so focused on the adventures being more interactive and action-packed, as Kane tries to do in a more casual way, such as the fast food adventure and the beach episode. This also makes sense based on how many times he was able to, be resurrected from abstraction. This is totally unrelated, but I did also want to mention that I saw scissors right underneath Jax's bed, which suggests toward possible self-harm that Jax may struggle with. I also just kind of thought this would be kind of cool if the abstraction is something you trigger. This would also explain why he's almost abstracted so many times. Now, while we're on the topic of Jax, I also wanted to mention a hot take that I have for the button scene. Let's assume for a while that Jax chose out of his free will to stay in the circus. In this case, this would also make sense. Jax would not want to return to the real world because other members would discover that he was in fact an employee of CNA. He would fear that even Pomni, who seems to still be loyal toward him despite his antics, would eventually hate him. This also makes sense as to why he's such a jerk to everyone else, because he's sort of preparing them for in case they find out. Even the fight with Pomni suddenly makes a lot more sense, as he thinks it is a warning toward his true identity as a CNA employee. When Gangle mentions Zooble always being there when she needed them, Jax also seems to avoid eye contact, as if he knows that he was not there for anyone and feels bad about trapping them in the circus. He even has the hiding something pupils, as if to highlight this further. Now, in the case that it was not a choice and that he was forced to press the button by someone, one of my favorite theories, who would that be? Now, I know what you're thinking. Kane. But no, I don't think it's Kane. Right before this scene, Kane and Jax seem to be on good terms. And since Kane is an AI, it really wouldn't make sense for him to go against what Jax was trying to falsely say towards Kane. And now, for the missing puzzle piece, Ribbit. Now I know what you're thinking. Ribbit abstracted. How could she possibly be still alive and in fact the CNA employee that Jax is trying to hide? And to that I say, yeah, you're kind of right. Personally, however, I believe abstraction is more of a regaining of consciousness in the normal world. And when you think about it, it actually fills in a lot of holes. If she abstracted and found out that's how to get out of the circus, she could be trying to trigger Jax to abstract as well, hence the whole scene with Ribbit's hands pulling Jax into a near abstraction state. If Ribbit only told Jax about her CNA employee's status, she would hate for the others to find out about this, and would therefore not want to cause any of the others to abstract and escape. Here is the crazy part. I believe that Abel might have been Ribbit herself in disguise so as to not alarm the other members in a way to get Jax to the button. This is when all the puzzle pieces start falling right into place. Ribbit was the one who forced Jax to press the red buttons. She didn't want to release every member, only Jax, and so she made him press the red button. Jax thought the control of his hand was Kane, which is why he lashed out at Kane so violently. So here's a summary of my entire theory. I think that Ribbit was the one who told Jax that she was a CNA employee. He didn't believe her, hence the argument in the crystal ball in Kane's office, and turned away from her. This may also be the reason that Jax fought with Pomni, as she probably sounded very similar to Ribbit in that moment. In turn, once she abstracted, she became aware of her actual body and began trying to get Jax out. Since they were close, this caused Jax's near abstraction scenes. Then finally, to most recent episodes, she forced Jax to choose not to leave so the other members could not know about it yet. Sorry if this video feels a bit rushed. I really wanted to post it before episode 8 comes out, since it may not be true. Be sure to like, subscribe, whatever. Thank you.